And I went on and everything loaded and I saw my score and the congratulations, and it was the best feeling in the world. I think I screamed. I did scream, I think.
And today we have a new successful Florida applicant. Aubrey, how are you?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
Well, I'm doing very well, but I bet that this must be just an incredibly exciting week that you've had since results came out.
It's definitely been a week for celebrations, for sure.
Well, I like that, a week for celebration. We have to use that. Why don't you tell your story, tell our audience a little bit about yourself and how you came to be taking the Florida exam in February of 2021.
Yes. So I was pretty much a typical law student. I went right from undergrad into law school. I went to law school here in Florida. And the bar exam was obviously one of those big things that I had some anxiety about, I would say, throughout law school. And I just recently graduated last year during the height of COVID and everything going on. And we had no idea, none of us in Florida had any idea how crazy it was all going to turn out to be. We imagined maybe it would get postponed once. Maybe that would be the worst that would happen. And it ended up getting postponed twice. And it was a really hard process. And it was the craziness too, with the whole exam itself ended up changing the format and everything. And didn't feel great after I took it. And there was the craziness with the online stuff for the first time, all of that. And then we got the results back and found out I did not pass. And it was very hard. There was about a month where I wasn't sure if I was going to take it again. I really wasn't sure where I was going to go from there. And then I was working remotely for my mom's an attorney as well. And she was so supportive throughout everything. But I actually heard from a different attorney on our staff about your bar review course. And he really pushed me to take it again. And I'm happy I did, because I just found out, I think exactly a week ago, that I passed with quite a few extra points, which was surprising to me.
Yeah, you had a great result. I want to go back, and it's awesome that you recentered and went for it. I think people don't necessarily know how incredibly traumatic it was in Florida, where the exam, as you say, was postponed twice in the fall of 2020 and then turned into this odd one-day test with no multi-state in it. And it just kept getting changed and changed. And that second postponement came less than 3 days before the bar exam was supposed to happen. Mm-hmm. So it probably felt to you like you were just studying forever. Is that a fair statement?
Correct. And a part of me thought, if I can't pass with having had that much time to study, maybe I'll never be able to pass. But it wasn't. It's so much more about, just for me at least, it was a lot about where my headspace was at. And that stopping and going with all the delays was just, I think it was a lot for a lot of people, but especially for me, that was the tough part.
Yeah, I think it really was. And then one of the additional challenges was that because the results came out late in the year and you took some extra time, you came to us relatively late in the process, right?
Yep. And I was very nervous about that as well. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to catch up, but I think it was almost a blessing that they came out as late as they did, because then I just kind of got right back into things. And it wasn't as hard to get back into studying as maybe it would be if I had more time off.
Yeah, I think that might be true. You're in that mode anyway. And once you had made the mental decision to jump into the next exam, then you were all in. You weren't dragging your feet. You really went in at full blast.
Yep. And I will say, after I found out I didn't pass the first time, I laid very low. I only told a few people, my people that are very close, obviously my roommates. Everybody that's very close to me knew, but I definitely just did a lot of focused on myself and focused on the work, and not as much about all the outside. What happens if I don't pass? Because that already happened. And that's the worst thing that could happen. So that wasn't a big thing hanging over me this time around.
Yeah, I think that's a big deal, because when you're carrying that load of expectations and what are people going to say and what does this mean for me as a human being, that's a lot of burden to carry, isn't it?
Yep, it's tough.
Yeah, it's very tough. So you found our course, and you and I talked, and you decided to jump in, and you chose our basic course. And a question that I get from people a lot is, do I have to get the most expensive courses to pass the bar exam? The answer is
no. Your materials are very sufficient and very It's a very well-run course.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's talk a little bit about some of the differences you saw in the way that we approached the exam and that you took and prepared versus what you did the first time through. And recognizing, of course, that fall exam was so bizarre that it certainly made things different anyway. But what did you see? What stood out in your mind as being different about this approach?
So something that was hard for me as I was going through studying the first time around with my big box bar review, I think that's what you guys call them. Yeah. So many materials, just so much to go through, 4 different outlines for one subject. And you have to, and it's just a waste of time going through all that when you just, and you try to go through everything and make your own mini outline at the same time. And that was just so time consuming and looking back, a waste of time for me. And I think the big difference also with your course is it just teaches you how to apply what you've learned a lot better than I think I noticed with the big box bar review. Big box bar review is more, here's all the material, memorize this. And that was the first time, your course was the first time I ever heard somebody say, don't memorize.
Yeah, it's stunning, like, isn't it? Like, what are wrong with these people? And yet you knew the material, didn't you, when you got into the exam?
Yeah, it was crazy how confident I felt, especially the essays. Also, your writing, like little videos are probably the most helpful. That was probably the most helpful part for me.
Yeah, and for people that don't know, one of the things that we teach differently, instead of issue spotting, which is what you did in law school and what most bar reviews teach, we try to have you write about the conflicts or the disputes and then use the laws and reach conclusions. And that's a little different at first, isn't it?
A little bit, but it helps you so much with time management and organization that I just don't know how nobody had ever come out with that before, because it was so helpful.
That's great. And I remember talking to you before the exam, and you felt pretty confident about your writing at that point. You felt like you understood what you needed to do, right?
Yep. And it was, I think that was the essay writing workshop is one of the first videos you have people watch. And I was like, why did nobody tell me this beforehand? Because it just breaks it down in such a way that is so much more manageable for these exams, especially for Florida exams.
That's great. What about the multi-state? People, obviously, you didn't have the multi-state in the fall, so you didn't really know where you were going to be with that preparation. What was the multi-state exam like for you?
I actually didn't feel as confident about the multi-state than I did with Florida. Luckily, I passed both parts, but I definitely felt it's that second day and just having to really push yourself through at the end. That was hard for me, I felt, but I definitely felt like your materials and those practice exams especially had me more confident going into it.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about taking an exam online, because obviously that's one of the big uncertainties for people. There are some jurisdictions that are in person, some are online. Florida currently is giving the test in an online format. What did you think about taking the test? Did you take it from your home or did you go somewhere else to take it online?
I took it from my home. And I will say, because I took it that October beforehand online, I wasn't as stressed about it going into the second time because I had experienced everything already and everything went well for me. Luckily, thankfully, both times. But I preferred it because it is nice being able to roll out of your bed and go take the exam and I really believe that other people's stress you can feel in that room. And
yes, absolutely.
That's something I'm thankful I did not have to go through, and everything, the Wi-Fi, everything worked out well for me. So I am a proponent of the online exam.
So did you kick your roommates out for 2 days?
Actually did not. One of them worked outside actually, and the other was so quiet in her room and I didn't even notice any of them were there. And I think when you get in such a headspace too, you zone everything else out.
Yeah, I think so. And it's not that you have to be in a library to take the test. You can do it from your home or your apartment or wherever. The advantage of being able to roll out of bed and eat your meals in your own kitchen and frankly, just use your own bathroom and not have to be in a room with 3,000 or 4,000 people, I think is a huge advantage. So plus not having to travel and stay in the hotel and all those things. Yeah. And the technology worked okay for you, your example.
Everything was, and that was also the same technology we would use during law school for online essay exams. So I was pretty familiar with it already.
That's great. Now, when you sat for the exam, you've been through the weird October test. Now you're taking a full-length 2-day exam, and it is different. That second day is just physically and mentally wearing, isn't it? To
Yeah.
grind you down a little bit. How did you feel when the exam was all over?
Relieved, obviously. I would say I felt better than I did the first time. Like I knew that I had done something was different, that I felt more confident. I was still, obviously, the waiting period was not easy, but I was pretty confident that I had passed.
Yeah.
Which I was not the first time around.
Exactly. Now there's about a 6-week waiting period in Florida after the results come out. And then a week ago today, Florida had their usual portal breakdown and everything went crazy and people couldn't get on. Can you talk a little bit about the experience of seeing your results when you finally were able to get online?
I don't think my heart has ever beat so fast in my life. Honestly, I woke up. I remember I woke up at 8 a.m. because they usually release them pretty early and they hadn't released it. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go back to bed. Somehow fell back asleep and then woke up around 10 or 11 and checked, and they had released the school numbers, you know how they do that first. And I went to FSU Law and only 9 people took it from our college, which was crazy. And then I saw 7 passed and I was like, if I am not a part of that 7, I will be shocked. And I went on and everything loaded and I saw my score and the congratulations, and it was the best feeling in the world. I think I screamed. I did scream, I think.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. And then you called your mom.
Yes. First person I called.
Right. And what did she have to say?
She was, first of all, actually I was crying a little bit, I think. And she was like, it's okay, it's fine. I was like, no, I passed. And she was like, you can't call me crying, making me think something bad happened. But she was so happy, but she was very confident, if not more confident than me, that this time around I did pass.
Yeah, you had put in the work and it was pretty clear that you were going to be successful. You had the right attitude. You were doing all the steps that you needed to do. And I can say, as a parent of a bar taker many years ago, it is stressful as the parent to watch Absolutely. That. You're like, I can only imagine what an exciting moment that was for her and for you to be able to share that with her. What advice would you give people who are perhaps in a situation similar to yours, where they've taken the exam, maybe they got their February results and they were unsuccessful, and now they're feeling all those sorts of emotions that you felt after the fall?
I would say, and I actually got this from one of your first videos I watched, is just, it doesn't mean anything about your intelligence or your capability, because it's just how you were on one day. And it's with going forward, you have to realize you may have just had a bad day or 2 days if you took a 2-day exam, but you can't take that energy. I don't think you can take that energy or negativity go if you want to go forward and take it again. I think you have to, and it's not easy. It takes a lot, but I think you have to go in with a fresh mindset and just say, this time I'm going to pass. And that was something that I did throughout my weeks of studying. Was every day, if I had like a moment of self-doubt, I just had to tell myself, no, I'm going to pass.
I think that's really important to do. The mindset is as important as the substantive knowledge, isn't it?
100%.
Yeah. I really appreciate you sharing your story with our audience. I know that there are a lot of people out there who did get their results. The repeat bar taker pass rate in Florida was about 10%. So you really beat the odds substantially, but a lot of people are feeling that discouragement. I think for a lot of folks, sometimes it's a sense of just feeling like they should give up. How would you explain to that person that feels like giving up what it feels like when you do pass? Does it make it worthwhile to have pushed through? You were at that point after the earlier exam where you weren't sure you wanted to keep going. What do you say to that person?
I say you just have, first of all, look at your bar review course. And that is step number 1. And then just also be confident in yourself that no matter what obstacles life throws at you, and I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but they're all happening for a reason. And I think that first time around, as terrible as it was to go through, it made it all so much better in the end. And that first time, as hard as it was to find out that I didn't pass, it made it so much better the second time around when I did. And just knowing that I could get through something like that, and just gives you a whole new confidence in yourself.
Yeah, I imagine it gives you great confidence. You should be very confident at this point. And it's exciting to be thinking about starting your legal career, isn't it?
Finally, yes, it is very exciting.
You go through undergrad, you go through law school, you go through the whole bar exam process, and now finally you get to do what
Yeah.
you wanted to do. And I'm excited to see what you do as a member of the bar. I think it's going to be great to have you in the Florida bar. I'm very excited for you and just feel terrific about your success. Thank you so much for being willing to share your story. I know it will encourage a lot of people. Any last thoughts you want to share with our audience before we sign off today?
Again, my biggest thing was just having that confidence every day throughout studying. And when you do have those moments of self-doubt, you just got to pull yourself out of them. And it's easier said than done, but it helps a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Aubrey, we're just really excited for you, proud of you. Thank you so much for sharing and forward to just seeing the cool stuff that you do. I hope you'll stick around and continue to stay part of our community. And just it's great news and very excited. So thank you for being here. Thank you to our audience for watching. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. And we will see you again next time when we talk to another successful bar taker. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.